You can run, but you can't hide.
Welcome, 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 y'all, to the Healing Exchange podcast. It's me, Jaquilla McFarley, your bestie, your cousin, your host, your neighbor. I'm so happy that you joined me again. If you made it on this episode, you might as well hit that subscribe button. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe down below under the video, The Healing Exchange, to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, I'm on TikTok. I'll put the @ name on the screen, Jaquilla MC. Also, follow me on Instagram. You'll see that @ name as well on the screen, Jaquilla_MCF. Or I'm also on Facebook, y'all. You can follow me on Facebook, and that's simply my name, Jaquilla McFarley. So, now that we got the logistics out the way, welcome to the Healing Exchange podcast. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you for joining in with me, listening to another episode. I'm so glad you're here. I cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, I got another good one for y'all. I have another good one for y'all. First of all, let me just tell y'all, I went to therapy today, and my therapist tore me up in a good way, but she tore me up, challenged me, helped me to get myself together, talking through things, telling me what's right and what's wrong, helping me to get through my triggers. Therapy, I encourage you, if you're a person that doesn't know anything about therapy, therapy is a game changer. It is a game changer. Not only do you need church and Jesus, you need therapy as well. Jesus and therapy, powerful combination. So I had to get that out, y'all. I just had to vent. Therapy was super good today. I went to therapy today, and it challenged me. So I just wanted to put that out there. So coming from therapy, I wanted to talk about boundaries. This episode, we're going to be talking about boundaries. Now, y'all, as you know, I got my notes right here on my laptop because I don't want to miss nothing. I don't want to forget nothing. So if you see me looking to the left, if you're watching me on YouTube, of course, I'm just looking here at my notes to make sure I don't forget anything, because I definitely want to get this to you guys because it encouraged me, and I want to encourage you as well. And remember, this is a healing exchange. So we're learning and growing together. As I'm speaking to you, I speak to myself. So this episode, we're going to talk about boundaries. Let's talk about boundaries. How, or the art of enforcing healthy boundaries. Now, there are unhealthy boundaries. I'm not talking about the unhealthy boundaries. I'm talking about enforcing healthy boundaries in your life. And I want to talk through some things, talk through some steps with you, steps that I had to take. This was my challenge for the last couple of weeks, making sure that I had healthy boundaries, making sure testing the motive. That's how you know if your boundary is healthy or not. When you test the motive behind that boundary, and it helps you and the other person and that relationship, that's how you know that it is a healthy boundary. So I want to talk about that. So first, we have to define what a boundary is. What is a boundary? And from what I've learned, a boundary is, it's a line. It's the Google definition, or the regular definition of boundary pertaining to anything. It's a line that marks a limit. It's a line that marks a limit to an area. Like, hey, people coming forward, stop right here. That's my limit. That's what the dictionary definition of a boundary is. It defines, like, now relationally, it defines expectations and respect within you and that other person. So how I see it, how I've learned what boundaries are, because growing up, I was never taught boundaries. Boundaries to me, I always looked at boundaries as a bad thing. Like, oh, you setting the boundary against me, that means you don't love me, or that means you don't want me in your life. That's how I used to see boundaries, because I was never taught about healthy boundaries. And boundaries, if someone is saying they have boundaries and they want to express their boundaries to you, that actually means that they love you. That person actually love you, and they're setting the boundary because they love you and they want you in their life. But this is their capacity, this is their limit. So to me, boundaries is how I can love you and me simultaneously. You get? I'm loving you. I have to love you in this relationship, but I also have to love myself. So here's my boundaries. Respect my boundaries and we can love each other. So it's me loving you and myself simultaneously. That's how I see it as far as boundaries. Boundaries are also things that boundaries is a protection. It's protection. Protection from consequences, protection from evil, protection from consequences. Those boundaries can be seen as protection. It's also seen as self-control. It's also love. It's also respect. So boundaries is a good thing as long as it's a healthy boundary. Now, I cannot forget that. We're going to talk about unhealthy boundaries. I'm going to give y'all some examples of how I was setting unhealthy boundaries. So, and y'all excuse me, my sinuses are under attack. But anyway, so let's get back to my notes. Let's get back to boundaries. So again, just to give a biblical perspective, boundaries, even God, as I was researching and reading through the scriptures, from the beginning, God enforced boundaries on mankind. He told in Genesis, he told Adam, the first man on earth, he told Adam, hey, you can have everything else in the Garden of Eden. You can have everything in this garden except this tree. The tree of knowledge of good and evil. You can eat everything, you can touch it, you can have whatever you want except this tree. That was a boundary. That was God's boundary against Adam. Don't touch this tree. And God wasn't setting that boundary with Adam because he was trying to keep him from something good. God set that boundary with Adam as protection. Just like we have the 10 Commandments or things in the Bible that God consider as sin. It's not because he's bad. God gives us these laws or these conditions and things that we should not do. And of course, we have free will. He gives us these guidelines and these commandments to protect us, to keep us from the consequences. So as you know, Adam and Eve, they ate the fruit. And because of that, basically here we are, y'all. We're reaping their consequences. Thank God for Jesus coming to redeem mankind, but we're still dealing with the consequences of Adam and Eve crossing God's boundary. So again, boundary can also be protection. So let's get into it. So how do I enforce boundaries? How do I enforce boundaries with other people? Let's get into it, y'all. Now, again, I got my notes here. I had to write some stuff down because as God was giving it to me, it was super good. And I had to make sure that y'all get everything that God was given to me. So the first thing that you have to do in order to set boundaries, the first thing you have to do is have self-love. Self-love. So self-love is something that's used on a regular basis. We use self-love as a cliche, or you should love yourself, or you should have self-love, or we define self-love as one thing, as something that is really not. you know? So in order for me to even begin to enforce boundaries, I must learn how to love myself. Now you ask, I know your next question. I got you. The next question is, okay, Jaquilla, how do I love myself? Where do I start? And I can share my personal experience and where I started and where I thought I should have started and where I should have started, if that makes sense. So, y'all, I thought self-love was doing whatever I wanted to do. I can control people. I can manipulate people. I can get whatever I want, do whatever I want, and not think about the consequences or have whatever I want, because I grew up spoiled. I was a spoiled child. I thought self-love was the accumulation of things and material things or sex or whatever. I thought self-love was giving into my flesh, making my flesh feel good. Whatever my flesh wanted, I fed my flesh, and to me that was self-love. That was me loving myself. Totally off, totally wrong. I was self-mutilating myself, actually, doing the polar opposite of what I thought was self-love. So what I found out was, y'all, self-love, you have to, in order to have self-love, you have to start with God. You have to start with God. But before you start with God, because again, if it's very difficult to enforce boundaries or have boundaries if you don't truly love yourself. Because how can you set a boundary when you don't love yourself, don't care about yourself? You know, how can I set boundaries? And when you don't love yourself, you become a yes man or a yes woman. You get what I'm saying? So you saying yes over and over again to other people makes you say no to yourself. And to go on further, that's simply people pleasing. Now, y'all, here's my confession. Hello, my name is Jaquilla McFarley, and I am a recovering people pleaser. I was definitely a people pleaser. I thought that was self-love, just giving of myself and doing things, even if it made me uncomfortable, just to make that other person happy. And it's really rooted in abandonment and rejection. I didn't want that person to leave my life. So, okay, I'll do this, even if it inflicted myself, even if it hurt me. I still did it out of abandonment and rejection, and that's people pleasing. And that people pleasing is not self-love. It is not self-love. So how do I love myself? I have to start with God. I have to learn about God's love, because he made me. He knows me better than anyone or anything else. I have to first learn about his love. Read the scripture. Learn about God's character. Learn about God, his nature. Learn about what God says that you are, who he made you to be. Once you start seeing yourself as God sees you, by reading the scripture, by learning about God, learning about God's love for me and for you, then, because true love starts, and this is what my leader taught me, true love starts vertically before it can become horizontal. I must first learn how to love God, find out, see myself the way God sees me, and then I can love myself and love my neighbor as myself. But first I have to start horizontal love. I have to love God to know who I am in him and figure out who I am in his eyes. And then I could say, you know what? God is love. And he loves me. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. All of these affirmations, that's how you begin to love yourself, when you start to see yourself as God sees you. Now you can have self-love. Now you can love your neighbor, because now you know what true love is. So that's the first thing. That's how you start with self-love. I must first love God, then I can love myself and love the people around me, love my neighbor. After you got the self-love, after you figure out how to love yourself, the second thing, now that I love myself, now I need to have self-awareness. Self-awareness, y'all. Now, I was stuck in self-awareness for a while, y'all. I was stuck here for a while because with self-awareness, you have to learn your personal limits and expectations for yourself. You have to know what you need from other people, if that makes sense. What do you need, or what is your capacity limit? And that just takes learning about yourself and accepting the truth about yourself and where you are, because boundaries can change as seasons, and as you grow and get older, boundaries can change. That's not a bad thing. Especially if you're a person like me that dealt with a lot of trauma in your life, as you heal, your boundaries may change slightly. As you meet new people, your boundaries might be different with different people. So in self-awareness, this is where you really get to know yourself. And it could be down to practical things. Like, I knew absolutely nothing about myself. The things that I liked, this is what I realized. The things that I liked was because somebody told me I liked them. I remember growing up liking pink, and I remember sitting down one day like, do I really like the color pink? And I didn't. I just did it because all the other girls were doing it at that age, and I was trying to be a girly girl. So I'm like, I don't like pink. I actually like purple. Now I know my favorite color. Is that actually your favorite food, or is that just something someone told you? What do you like? What are your likes and dislikes? And that could be practical. That could be clothes. That could be attire, down to the deep things. You need to know your strengths. You need to know your weaknesses. You need to know your capacity limit, what you can handle, what you can't handle right now. You have to be honest with yourself in the self-awareness stage and sit with the truth, so that you are able to, because boundaries, again, are not just for you, for that other person. The boundaries are for you. So loving yourself within that boundary that you're enforcing, you need to be self-aware of yourself. What are my strengths? What am I good at? What am I not so good at? What are my weaknesses? What can I handle? What can't I handle? What am I sensitive to? And you may have some fears. What do I fear? What can my heart handle? What's in my heart? Have I truly forgiven? You have to really do the deep work. And you can't, most of the time you can't do that by yourself. It's going to take more than you to heal you. So you're going to have to get outside eyes looking in, because if you stay within yourself, you can't help yourself, because you can't truly see what's going on within you if you stay within you, if that makes sense. If I'm always in my head, I'm always with me, I'm always alone, I'm not going to see a lot of problems, because I'm used to me versus someone else coming in from the outside like, hey, your thinking is off, or hey, why do you do that to yourself, or hey, why did you say that, or hey, hold your head up, walk straighter. So in this self-awareness stage, you're going to have to let other people in or seek help, counseling, mentor, therapy, something more than just, reading scripture. And that's nothing wrong with that. That's a big thing. But you're going to have to put your faith to works. You have to meet God with your works as you have your faith. So the self-awareness stage is very, very, very important. Now, the last thing you have to do, once you love yourself, once you have self-awareness, now you know your limits, you know what you're weak to, you know what your strengths are, you know your capacity. Now that you are past that self-awareness stage, you can write out your boundaries. Okay. And remember, healthy boundaries, they're healthy when you test the motive. Test the motive of every boundary that you write down or before you present it to the person that you're in relationship. Even boundaries with yourself. If you know that you can't watch a particular show because it brings up certain feelings, cut it off. So this is not just relationally. You have to have boundaries against yourself. If you know you struggle with drinking and you're trying to stop, no, I can't go to the bar with you, friend. Or, no, I can't go to your kickback because I'm trying to stop, distance myself from alcohol. You have to set those boundaries against yourself, against your flesh. So this is not just relationally, y'all. This is boundaries in relationships and with yourself. So again, after you have the self-awareness, you write out your boundaries, you test the motive, and these boundaries are healthy. Now, once you relay those boundaries or set that expectation with yourself, now the third thing and the most important thing, don't compromise on your boundaries. Do not compromise on your boundaries. I think it's in Matthew chapter 5. Let your yes be yes and let your no be no. Do not compromise with your boundaries. Stick to them. Because how can we expect for other people to abide by our boundaries when we don't even respect our own boundaries? We don't even abide by them. You teach people how to treat you. You teach people how to respect your boundaries. Stick with it. Don't compromise. Don't be afraid to confront. When someone crosses your boundary, confront it. Stop it right there. Nope, we can't. Let's have a conversation. Please don't do this or that. You can have a healthy confrontation. Not all confrontation is bad. Confrontation is healthy. And you have to confront a thing to stop it. And if you don't stop it and allow it to continue, then you're compromising. Now that relationship is compromised. So remember, you have to teach people how to treat you. You have to teach people how to respect your boundaries. But it first starts with you. Do you respect your own boundaries? Do you have limits? What are you teaching the people you are in relationship about yourself? How are you teaching them how to love you? And the only way is to answer that is to ask yourself, okay, how am I loving me? How am I doing it? Am I doing it healthy? What are they seeing? So that's my challenge for y'all this week. Follow those steps. And it's not a 1-2 step guide, y'all. All of this stuff I talk about is a process. And it is a process that I'm going through as well. I am going through it as well. So I challenge you. I'm going to be doing this challenge with you, testing my boundaries and making sure I'm enforcing healthy boundaries. So let's do it, y'all. Let's do it. Let's be healthy. Let's get through it. Let's overcome. All right. So I will see y'all on the next episode. Thank you again for joining the Healing Exchange.